always kind of been like this with strangers?
No.
Okay.
Well, she had some reactivity and she was very like off-putting, but she didn't do this.
I got you.
So it's definitely escalated for the year that I've had her. And then I have another dog and my partner. I think
Yes.
with that
Okay.
missing
Yeah.
piece,
I
she's
recall.
definitely her confidence.
Yeah. And was there something in particular that like you noticed that was like kind of the turning point with her?
So the turning point with me was the 2 weeks I had my friend take care of her.
Yeah.
My friend came back a few weeks later.
Yeah.
And she, postured, did the whole. She never, for a very long time, she kept her space. She would bark and she never got the fur up on the back of it, but she would bark and.
I got you.
And now she's getting close. So I had a friend
Sure.
come over recently and she lunged at her and I just happened to notice, so I was able to pull her back.
Sure.
But I think she would have bitten her.
Then just hang out there for a minute. I know, I'm so scary.
I know, baby girl.
Muzzle is fitted up nice and snug right now.
Yeah, I was pulling on it. It'll pull away a little bit, but it's...
That's okay. Yeah. Okay, you can walk her a little closer to me. And just hang out right about there. And in a second here, what I'm gonna have you do is you're gonna hold your leash short, but you're gonna take the slack and you're gonna give me the slack of it.
Okay.
So. Thank you.
Do you want me to let go?
Go for it. I'm gonna go sit down over here if that's okay. So first step here, I just want to see how long she'll persist for sitting with me. If she continues to persist and doesn't seem to slow down a little bit, I'll kind of push the boundary a little bit, try some interaction and stuff. So obviously she tried to bite me, right? Like we're not gonna discredit that by any means here.
No.
But a lot of times what we'll find with dogs like this, she's clearly doing this out of a place of fear, right? She's trying to get away from me right now. There's tension on the leash, right? But typically speaking, when we see dogs that are really scared and just have for a while now been doing that reacting behavior from a held back leash, the second that restraint goes away, it's just like they unload. You know what I mean? Now, I try to, on that first kind of time that they do it, I kind of discredit that initially due to all of that frustration buildup just getting like exploded, From there, I see, how much does the dog persist? How often do they like revert back to that state of mind once I have the leash, et cetera, right? I'm just gonna kind of keep her close to me here right now, so I'm actually not gonna allow her to get away, right? And I'm kind of making her make contact right now. So I'm kind of holding this leash in place where she's forcing her, or I'm forcing her, I should say, to make physical contact with my body so that she's not realizing she can get away right now. So pretty much all that nonsense that she was throwing at me was her trying to avoid this. Right? And listen, I'm not saying she's not going to try to do it again in a second, right? But once I make the contact, she's like, wait, this is different. Like all those behaviors I'm used to doing that work are no longer working,
Yeah, that's part of the problem I was trying not to reinforce.
Sure.
The pull back,
Yeah.
And it's hard because it's scary for people.
Of course. And especially since, you don't have that much training on her, obviously.
Yeah.
So there's only so much you can do in a situation like that. You know what I mean? But the positive with all of this is that she's proven that she can be social, right? She's fine with you, right? She was fine with your partner, right? She was fine with your friend, et cetera, et cetera. So we know she could turn this behavior on and off, right? And it really is just a bunch of intimidation tactics, right? Like again, yes, some of these cases she's trying to bite me, but that's because I'm pushing this boundary more than any other guest would, right? Even with my personal dogs who are pretty good with people, I wouldn't let guests push boundaries as much as I'm doing right now.
Absolutely.
But we're doing this to really test where she's at with stuff,
Yeah.
So in a second here, if she stays a little bit chill right now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna start walking around, and a lot of times the next big trigger that we'll see once they're comfortable with just hanging out with you is when that picture starts changing again. So I'll probably get up and she'll freak out, you know, walk around for a minute. We'll do that a couple times until we could desensitize that trigger a little bit as well.
Soon we'll need tune-up training when he comes home.
Okay. So again, exactly what I said. Getting up, big trigger, no biggie, right? Anytime we're working with, like, especially more serious behavioral issues, but behavioral issues in general, there's always a, like, self-reinforcement behind a behavior, right? Whether it's plain old jumping, whether it's barking out the window, whether it's aggression, right? Typically speaking, there's some reinforcement to the dog does this, and something happens when they do that, which creates a sense of positive reinforcement, which amplifies the behavior, right? So in her case, she reacts, person goes away. She reacts, person goes away. That feels really, really good.
Yeah.
Her knowing that she has a sense of control at that point, right? So before we start any sort of training, we have to see first and foremost, when we remove the reinforcement, what happens, right? Now that's not a solution in and of itself, obviously, right? But it's the first start to understanding the behavior. It's crazy, I know. She's got a lot of fight in her. I'm gonna try that just a couple more times here, just see if we get any sort of reduction in the getting thing at this point. Why you gotta be like this? Why you gotta be like this? It's definitely a handful.
Okay.
Right? So here's the thing. So definitely, we won't call it good, right?
Okay.
So now, again, I've seen plenty of dogs like her before. It's not like this is the worst thing that I've ever seen in my life, right? But like, you start dealing with behaviors like this, and you start having to have the conversations, not necessarily about like, do we euthanize, do we not euthanize, but like, what would it look like if we were to pursue a training option? You know what I mean? And the big thing I tell everybody is, when we're dealing with dogs that are having like extreme fear aggression issues, right? Or extreme aggression issues in general. Hers is more specific to fear though, obviously. You don't ever quote unquote like fix them and turn them into social butterflies. You know what I mean? Like the dog we were talking about, like Kevin, for example, right? He was an extreme fear aggressive dog, right? He was definitely a bite risk, right? He was definitely very intense with his behaviors and stuff. And he made substantial progress, like really, really phenomenal progress, right? He was really great with all of us at the facility. He went home maybe like, it was right when I got back from Hawaii. It was beginning of January, I think. I think he went home, right?
And
what's that?
Getting ready to go to Hawaii.
Yeah, oh, cool. You know, he went home beginning of January, and like I actually just an hour or so ago was working with the trainer that worked with him. I was like, hey, have you heard from Kevin lately? He's like, yeah, he just called me the other day, said like things are going pretty well. You know, a couple little hiccups here and there, like nothing really aggression related, just, you know, questions about the training process and stuff like that. But he's been pretty good, you know. But the big thing is there are very, very strict rules they have to follow as far as like this is how you introduce him to other dogs. This is how you introduce him to other people, et cetera, right? When you have a guest come over the house, this is your routine you need to follow indefinitely, et cetera, right? So I'm very confident we can get her to a place where you can manage her extremely effectively, right? You know, people come in, she'll have a reliable bed stay on her. She won't be, you know, need to be like locked up in her crate, or else she's going to be like charging at people trying to attack them and stuff like that, et cetera, right? But she's probably going to be a dog that the first couple times a new person comes over the house, the socialization with that person is going to be done through her holding the bed stay and just seeing that person moving around from afar. Because let's say, you know, her big trigger right now with me is not like once I get her cool with me, she's cool with me, right? But when I start moving around or changing what I'm doing and stuff, she's like, wait a minute, what are you doing? I'm scared about this. I need to try to control this, right? So her initial socialization needs to be learning how to see those types of things and just do her own thing and realize that it's nothing that concerns her. You know what I mean? And once you work past that trigger, the socialization part of things, like what we're doing right now, is really not that challenging. She's proven she could be social with people. She's just very controlling of the things going on in her house, right? And we need to shift that mentality to it's your house, and to you don't need to worry about these things that are happening. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to tell you that she's never going to be a bite risk ever either, because that would be unrealistic. You know what I mean? We could, you know, like I said, we could substantially improve her responses to these triggers, right? And we could make it so it's such a minimal risk, you know? But that risk is always going to be there to some extent, right? But the thing is, you know, here's the thing. She's a little bit older, right? You know, like looks like she's in good health and stuff, obviously. So I'm sure she got plenty of life left in her, and she'll probably be the dog that lives to 100.
That was my other, I was like, this dog will live until she's 20.
Yeah, right? But, where was I getting at with that? But she's a little older. You know, she doesn't, you know, it's okay if her social interaction with new people is typically done through more passive socialization like that. Like, that's okay.
Totally okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't need her to
Exactly, right? So that's the biggest conversation I have with people with dogs like this is just, you know, are those things you're okay with? Because we have plenty of people that'll bring a dog like this to us and just be like, well, we have parties at our house all the time and we want her to be out for it, and, you know,
It's very selfish.
I completely agree with you, but it's like, you know, it's who am I to say what you want out of your dog?
I get it.
But unfortunately, this would not be the dog that would fit in that lifestyle. You know what I mean? And this, unfortunately, is also not a dog you could rehome. So, like, people that are in that type of situation, that's where you get into like the euthanasia conversation about things, because it's just too much of a liability then at that point.
Yeah, I'm not.
Right?
I don't have massive parties by any means.
Yeah.
I'm totally cool with a play stay if people are over.
So, you know, like I said, like I think she's you know, like I haven't met a dog like this that isn't workable, that can't make substantial progress, you know. I like to just go over again, like, you're not going to fix her, right? You're just going to get her, like, dramatically more manageable with stuff. So.